Today on WizPlay Gaming, we're doing something I really hope you like, and I genuinely mean that, because this game was insanely tricky to get footage of due to the console that it was on, and that console is the Nintendo DS. Nintendo's follow-up to the Game Boy family, the Nintendo DS was known for its 2 screens and its touchscreen functionality. This also means that it's really annoying to get footage of Nintendo DS games, as it's hard to find a way to record this damn thing. It lacks any and all TV out, and unlike the Game Boy, there was no Game Boy Player or Super Game Boy release that allows you to play the games on a television screen. Emulation is also tricky because you have to simulate the touchscreen, which means usually requiring some kind of really unique setup to play it comfortably. But you're going to find out that this thing is difficult to play comfortably on actual hardware anyway. With that all said, I really do hope you enjoyed this one because the amount of setup I had to do to make this happen was staggering. Dementium the Ward is a very, very interesting title because it was a first-person shooter survival horror game on the Nintendo DS. The same console that brought you Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Yes, you heard that correctly. Your first thought might be, how the hell would a first-person shooter work on the Nintendo DS? I mean, this thing doesn't even have joysticks. And the answer is the stylus. If you were a kid back in the early 2000s, you might have played a game called Metroid Prime Hunters, which I might add is a great Metroid game, but a flawed one. Anyway, if you played it, you'd know that first-person shooters on the DS were very possible, and even controlled pretty fluidly. You used the stylus to aim and the D-pad to move. The shoulder buttons act as your triggers. It actually worked, and it could achieve some pretty fluid movement, and even fluid enough for solid multiplayer experiences, such as that which was had at Metroid Prime Hunters. Seriously, I remember playing the hell out of that game, but I never got as good as my brother. Okay, enough reminiscing about Metroid Prime Hunters, I promise. The point is, this was probably the first handheld I remember that had actual decent controls for this genre, which was known for needing 2 joysticks to even function properly, and the DS had a handful of great FPS games on it, though shockingly no official Doom port. But don't worry, I'm sure fans made sure to fix that. We'll get the controls a little bit more later in this video, but for now we should talk more about the game itself. Dementium, as the title of the video implies, was actually almost a Silent Hill game. Yes, a Silent Hill game on the Nintendo DS, long before Tom Hewlett was ruining the franchise in every way imaginable. Seriously, screw you Tom, you do not love Silent Hill more than me, and I can say that objectively, because I would not have done it as dirty as you did.
Nobody cares about Silent Hill more than I do. Not hyperbole. Literally nobody.
He said as he was butchering the 2 greatest games in the franchise. Anyway, the good people over at Renegade Kid pitched this game to Konami a few times as a Silent Hill game back in 2007. Sadly, however, Konami would decide to go a different route, and thus we got Silent Hill Homecoming instead, followed by Hewlett spreading this filth over the franchise for several years. After Konami passed on the idea though, Renegade Kid was not dissuaded from making the game, and instead teamed up with another publisher and reworked it into a standalone experience, and thus we got Dementium the Ward. Now, there are actually 2 remasters of this game, one for the 3DS and one for modern consoles, but we're going in it the old-fashioned way with the classic original, experiencing it the way that it was back in 2007, with those original Nintendo DS graphics and all, because that's what it's all about here. Don't adjust your screens, this is in fact how the game is supposed to look. Let's not stall anymore though, and let's get right into the meat grinder, because this game has a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited to tell you about this thing. From the get-go, I'm gonna say it, this game looks very interesting. It has a cool art style that is very, very ambitious for the Nintendo DS. A console that for all intents and purposes produces graphics that were probably on par with the PlayStation 1. But that's okay, because I personally feel the low-poly, low-res era of gaming is where horror worked best. And it had its roots there. I've said it before, but limitation breeds creativity. And it forces people to think outside of the box to create something that your brain will fill in the blanks for, which I might add is the best method for creating something scary. Your mind can create something far more terrifying than any visual can conjure, as it will make something that is specifically scary to just you. And that's why when you can't really tell what it is that you're looking at, it tends to be a lot more unsettling. That's one of the best things that this game has going for it. It has that feel like a PlayStation 1 horror game. You know, sort of like Silent Hill, the game it was pitched as.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you.
I stand by the fact that this game could have worked as a Silent Hill game, but sadly it was something that never came to be, just like a remake of Chrono Trigger. The controls are actually pretty damn good, as you use the stylus to aim, and as I said before, it creates some fairly precise aiming. Though there is a bit of aim assist to help you, so don't worry, and the hit detection is generous enough to make it so that you're not fighting the controls the entire time either. It really does feel like they did the best they could with the tech that they had, and it works. It works pretty well, actually. The problem, though, is that if you know anything about the DS Lite, or the 3DS, there is no real comfortable way to hold it for prolonged periods of time in one hand. So you'll have a hard time playing for more than an hour or so without some kind of grip on your console. This game, along with Metroid Prime Hunters, likely gave tons of people hand cramps or even carpal tunnel syndrome. And that's not really the fault of the game though, more like Nintendo's fault for not making the console fit properly in your hand if they intended to use it with one hand from time to time. Gameplay-wise, it's what you'd expect from a first-person shooter, where you shoot at monsters and navigate a labyrinthian hospital to try and progress. I say a labyrinthian because this place is a maze, and a lot of areas look the same, and you will want to prioritize finding a map every new level you enter, which isn't always directly obvious. You will get lost many times, and the map helps a little bit, but it doesn't provide as much information as the maps in Silent Hill. So you'll get turned around from time to time, as rooms aren't labeled and you need to remember where stuff is. You do get a notepad with only 2 blank pages, which you can write down info that you need to solve puzzles, but sadly you will not be able to fit much on this thing, and you don't add the documents that you pick up to any kind of folder or inventory, meaning you either have to remember information or go check the document again. It's tedious sometimes, but fortunately the puzzles aren't too obtuse, and there's not that many documents in the game to pick up either. Combat feels good, albeit some enemies are annoying as hell, such as these leech things which are hard to hit, but they make an irritating screeching noise every time they appear on screen. The problems, though, are the exploration, as this game has a weird design choice where enemies respawn in rooms if you leave, but supplies such as healing items and bullets do not. This means you'll likely need to memorize levels when you die, and you're forced to restart to make sure you're not backtracking too much. Oh yeah, death means restarting a level. Yeah, the only way to save is to make it to the next chapter, and that can be insanely frustrating sometimes, as some bosses are insanely annoying to fight, and you need to figure out the technique. Weapons feel good to use though, but your ammo reserve is very small. Only 24 bullets for the pistol, 16 for the shotgun for example, and like I mentioned, bullets don't respawn, but enemies do.
Well, that sucks!
If you don't make an effort to solve the briefcase puzzle in the 6th level to get the electric buzzsaw, a lot of the game will be insanely challenging, but you can miss it as it is an optional side quest. The buzzsaw makes the challenges ahead manageable as unlimited usage and takes out most enemies with ease, and even stun locks many of them. Honestly, it is just a really good reward for completing a side quest, like genuinely so. This is what I'm talking about when I say games need to reward you for your efforts better. You complete the side quest and you get one of the best weapons in the entire game. This thing rocks. It shreds monsters, kills demons, and rips holes in the space-time continuum. Okay, maybe not that last thing, but it's pretty essential if you want to succeed. Honestly, the gameplay is engaging, and while there's a very small amount of enemy variety overall, what we do get is a nice taste of what could have been. The levels are confusing, and yes, you'll experience some cheap deaths, but ultimately I felt like this was a hidden gem on the Nintendo DS not enough people talk about. I know it got 2 remasters that fell under the radar, but it's all about that original vision for me. I feel the modern console remasters kind of lose the charm this game had going for it, as they kind of remove the PlayStation 1-esque aesthetic. There's heart behind this game, and I'm not talking about the constant heartbeat that you hear while playing it, and yes, you can turn that off if you don't want to hear it, but I feel it ruins the immersion for me. I was in complete awe at what I was experiencing, on a handheld with so little horsepower too. But that's not to say the game is not without its flaws. It has plenty, and we'll get more into that. The music itself is fitting, ominous piano tunes that give creepy vibes.
I hate this Windows Vista tonight. Blue screens.
I've always had a fascination with games that are punching way above what a console is normally capable of, and Dementium definitely falls into that category. It even got cutscenes. Granted, they're crushed down to toaster quality because the DS cartridges have very, very tiny storage size, but this is all really ambitious stuff. Dementium's gameplay feels good, and that's the important thing in a game. It feels good and it's fun to play. Dementium succeeds at both of those things, even with its flaws. Now, we should get on to the story, though. This segment is probably not going to be very long, as story is where Dementium went for a more minimalist approach. While it began life as a pitch for a Silent Hill game, Dementium had to rework its story into a unique game, and it's clear that without Silent Hill they didn't know what direction to go with, as the story is pretty bare bones. The game begins with your character waking up in a hospital with amnesia. You play as William Redmore, and you're accused of murdering your entire family and you're forced to undergo experimental psychiatric treatments. But upon waking up, the hospital is overrun by monsters.
Aliens and monsters were attacking his place.
The story is told mostly through context clues and notes that you find laying around, and the occasional cutscene that hints at your family's ultimate fate. From the get-go, you pick up a flashlight and a baton and you're off to try and find an escape from the hospital. The baton is probably the worst weapon in the game. It requires a certain rhythm to even kill your foes without taking hits yourself, so you'll likely be abandoning it the moment a better option comes along. You get a handgun, a shotgun, and even a machine gun as weapons, but you're operating on Doom 3 logic where you can't hold a torch and a weapon at the same time. But fortunately, switching between them is fast and feels natural. Also, unlike the insult to the Doom franchise that Doom 3 was, the flashlight is unlimited, showing that such a concept can work well if developers put time and thought into how to make it work properly. The first boss you fight is the Cleaver, and he's no big deal. A few well-placed shotgun shots to the head and he goes down with ease. The second boss may require you to think outside the box a little bit more. He's referred to in the game solely as Wheelchair, and he's a guy in a wheelchair with a chain gun. You may get stuck on him for a while like I did until you realize there's a pattern that you can exploit here. Your biggest hurdle during bosses is actually running out of resources to fight the boss during said fight, as there is no ammo and no healing items during boss fights, so you have only what you enter the room with. The game sort of runs out of ideas though, as by the time you pick up the machine gun near the second half of the game starts getting pretty challenging as the next set of bosses are kinda brutal. If you didn't pick up the electric buzzsaw earlier in the game, the final levels will be a serious challenge, that's for sure, as the flying head enemies that scream at you will cause you serious trouble without it. Not to mention they'll make your ears bleed if you're wearing headphones. The third boss is super frustrating though. It's a room with all these mouths on the wall that spit out these leeches, so you have to keep moving while shooting at them all, and it will definitely take you a few tries to beat this, as this one is really tough due to all the leeches you have to avoid. Throughout the game, you're taunted by a mysterious voice that you don't get to fully confront until the end of the game, where you fight the Doctor. And this fight is balls hard. You need insane precision and timing to counter his attacks, and it will likely take you the most tries of anything you've done up to this point. But once you take him down, you're treated to the final cutscene.
Let the record show that as of 3:33 a.m., the patient has survived phase 1 of the operation. Prepare for phase 2.
Yes, the big plot twist. The entire game was actually an illusion in William's mind as he undergoes an experimental brain surgery, and it sequel baits in the most unambiguous way. Honestly, the story was fascinating and it really got me wishing for more. Perhaps more explanation of William's backstory, or even just talk about his family and who he was prior. But I guess that's what the sequel is for, right? This is one of those games where if you don't play the sequel, then you basically can't understand what's going on. Which I might add, the sequel is far more expensive to find than the original game, so good luck hunting down a copy. New Game Plus. Extra unlockables, second campaign, check all that apply. None of the above. Yeah, you'll likely be disappointed that this is a one and done game, so if you're looking for replay value through unlockables, you're out of luck there. Is this game good enough to play again though? That is the question. And I would say yes. It's a fine game, one worthy of adding to your DS collection if you can find it for a decent price. It goes for a decent penny, but not as much as its sequel. That's the big thing here though, is you need to play the sequel apparently, which I have yet to do at the time of making this video. But I definitely intend to if I can find a copy that costs less than my firstborn child. Have you ever seen Higurashi? It's like that. Watching season 1 without watching season 2 makes the entire show not make sense because you need the second season to even understand what's going on. And that's sort of what's happening here, you have to play both games. From my understanding, the remasters do add some quality of life improvements such as tweaking difficulty in some places and adding save areas mid-level. So if you're not a fan of being sent back to the start of every level you die until you basically memorize the level layout, you may want to check out those versions if this one isn't appealing enough to you. But again, you lose some of the aesthetic from the classic low-res visuals, not to mention the charm of the DS being the system you're playing it on. I could say that this game is a product of its time, and I was genuinely thinking that it wasn't going to be enjoyable to play in 2026, almost 19 years later, but shockingly, this still feels very fun to play. Even after all the innovations of the horror genre, and even after all the horror games I've already played, Dementium had me going, that's pretty cool, almost the entire way through, and I never really stopped being amazed that this is a Nintendo DS that I'm playing this on. I definitely would have loved to see maybe alternate endings, unlockables, maybe even some additional files you could find in your second playthrough, but truthfully what we got was good enough. It's a small taste of a two-part adventure, and it left me eager to see more. So if that was the intent, it definitely succeeded there. As I always say, the game is fun, even if it will murder your wrist for playing it for extended periods of time. Dementium is likely not going to be remembered as the peak horror experience of its time, and I doubt it will top anyone's top 5 charts for best horror game they've ever played. But it stands out as one of the most unique horror games I've ever played, and that's really saying something given how many horror games I've played on this channel alone. It is a real shame that this didn't get to be the next Silent Hill of its day, because honestly, it would have been a much more worthy handheld to Silent Hill experience than whatever Book of Memories was. It was terrible, that's what it was. And I hope Tom Hewlett feels bad for ever creating it. And no, once again, you are not a bigger fan of Silent Hill than me, because I would not put stains in the franchise that were so bad that people refuse to talk about them like you did. For what it is, though, Dementium at least succeeded in being a charming little game on the Nintendo DS that experimented with the hardware to do something interesting. And I enjoyed that experiment, even if it could have used a little bit more work and polish. It pays to be open-minded and look into games that didn't become the smash hits of their day, and I am sure this game has a little following, which I hope I can contribute to by even convincing one person to give it a try. How about all of you? Are you sold on Dementium, or did you play it back in the day? Let's discuss it in the comments below. If you're new here, I do retrospectives on retro or retro-inspired games, so subscribe if you want to see more of that. Check out our Discord if you want to hang out with us. I try and stay active there. And as always, I'm WizPlay, and that's enough of that.